Hey witches, happy Samhain, happy spooky season, and welcome to Seeking Witchcraft. Today I have on repeat guests Tiana and Azazel. You'll probably remember them from their own podcast. Tiana has the Christian and the Witch and the Astrology Witch podcast, and Justin has the Feast of Torches podcast. But they've both also been on Seeking Witchcraft a number of times to talk about random things like incense or astrology. So I'm really stoked to have them on. Thanks guys for coming back.
Yeah, we're glad to be here.
Yay! Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So today is going to be more of like a bonus episode type thing. We're going to have a blip of an educational thing in the beginning, but we're really going to be talking about some of the real life paranormal experiences that we've encountered since it is spooky season after all. And I don't know, to keep it educational, because that's kind of what all the episodes are supposed to be about, we're also going to have a brief discussion on the topic of ritual possession, because as it turns out, Azazel wanted to kick us off with 2 stories he has about this. So why don't you introduce this concept to the listeners, Azazel?
Hello, everyone. So, when you think about ritual possession, possession in general, a lot of us tend to think about the scary movies where like The Exorcist or the multiple Exorcist movies that exist, and a lot of people tend to equate that with witchcraft. But witchcraft does actually have a type of ritual possession that you can do, and it kind of goes back even to antiquity with if you think about the oracles at Delphi, and they would essentially invoke Apollo into themselves and divine all these sort of divinations and prophetic visions that they would give to leaders of the land. And it's something that you can do like just yourself if you're trying to get a better connection with a deity. It can definitely be helpful for you to essentially know them both inside and out, literally. And but this is something that needs to be worked on slowly. It's not something that you do all at once, especially when you're brand new to it, because mishaps can happen, just like the first story I'm going to tell you guys about. So one of my coven brothers, he tends to get a little, the best way to put it was he doesn't really have a sense of control when it comes to ritual possession. And so he tends to let it just take over him in all senses of the word. Like it's beautiful to watch, but there's no, like, you don't know what's going to happen. There's no element of a controlled situation. And there was this one time where we had planned to do this ritual to Pan, and he invited over his boyfriend at the time. Well, he's still dating him now. And I think they had been dating maybe like a month or 2. And he was like kind of into like witchy stuff, but like still didn't really experience the full aspect of what witchcraft can behold. And then you have me and him who are essentially a lot more experienced than this new peon that we have with us. And so we're doing this ritual, and it's just me and him and his partner. And we have a candle set up. We have the whole altar set up to Pan, and we do the invocation. And immediately, my coven brother just like takes him on, and he like stands up and he starts like saying, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was just like essentially prophesizing things and just giving us messages. And then again, this is Pan. When you think about Pan is a very, how do I best put this? He's a very chaotic entity. While loving, and I love Pan, like dear to my heart, but you never know what's going to happen with Pan. And he started getting a little bit, like I could tell that he, at this point, had lost control of the situation. And so I slowly, and I realized that his partner had watched me do this, I slowly reach over to the altar and grab my athame. I'm just like, just in case anything happens. I don't need to just jump over the altar and just like try anything, because like I'm going to be ready. And then I just see his partner just like look at me like, what the hell is going on right now? Like, what is happening? And so things clicked in my head at that point in time where like I saw him freak out, that he obviously freaked out at me grabbing my athame.
Jesus.
So I immediately went over there and I tried to like ground him and bring him back down to the universe and essentially remove the god from the situation.
Just eat out the god real quick.
Basically.
I'm sure this story is I'm sure people listening to us who've never heard of ritual possession are probably going, what the fuck? Like right now? Because this is definitely not a new or like a beginner type
No.
topic by any.
This is something that we've practiced like repeatedly, but it's definitely not something you go into immediately. You kind of like start off with like evocation, bringing the energy into your space, and then slowly, if you gain more comfortability with this deity, you can try to do an invocation and bring them into you and try to like kind of like mesh yourselves with each other.
I love that you're so ballsy though, because like it's like you would think that you'd be like, you know, trying to invoke ritual possession for some like friendly, chill god, not Pan, who's god of the wild and the fucking like untamed. Like that's like invoking, like whenever I see like newbie witches being like on Facebook groups or whatever where they're like, yeah, just over here, you know, trying to invoke fucking the chaotic Loki or some shit. And I'm like, why would you do that? It's like you want problems to happen.
To be fair, at the time I had been working with Pan for probably like 10 years.
Oh,
so
damn.
like I was familiar with him. My coven brother, however, not so familiar with him. And he was the one who ended up doing the ritual possession. And, you know, moving into that was one of my first experience where it was a little chaotic. There was another time where, again, it was a dark and spooky night a couple years ago. I think it was actually, we did it on Halloween night. It was me again and my coven brother and another friend of his that was in my outer court at one point. We went out to the woods, as woodsy as you can get in Miami. It was a very secluded area. And we decided we were going to do like this ritual to Hecate. A ritual possession wasn't planned for the night. We were going to do essentially try to invoke her into this fire that we had built. And we had this whole ritual planned out. So we're doing the thing, and usually, and this, not everybody does this, but it's with Hecate and invoking her, especially during like the time of Samhain, you kind of want to honor her by kind of like covering your head or wearing some type of veil. And so usually when I work with her, I have this like kind of like this Sith looking hoodie, and I just cover my forehead or cover the top of my head with it, and you can't really see anything below my nose, or you can only see everything like below my nose. You can't really see like my eyes or my nose or anything. And so we're doing this, and we're trying to do the invocation into the fire, and we're trying to like scry through the fire and see if we get any messages or anything. Nothing is happening. So we're kind of just like sitting there like, well, this was a dud. And so as the two of them are talking, I'm kind of just like staring into the fire. At some point, I blacked out, and like the next thing I know, like I'm looking at the both of them, and they are bawling, crying, like tears running down their face, looking at each other like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? And they were just like, your face changed, and you're like, you did like, your face did not look like you at all. And like,
holy shit,
I love it.
The like the hoodie part of the veil that I was wearing kind of like lifted up a bit, and you could see my eyes, but they were like, that was not your face, that was not your eyes. Your eyes looked like they had like little embers in them, and your face was like pale white. It was very feminine looking. I don't know what the hell just happened. And you were saying some stuff, and now we're both crying.
Imagining you as a pale white person too. Like I can't.
So they didn't. So at the time they didn't realize that each other had seen my face do that. I guess I don't. This was the first time I had ever experienced this, and again, obviously, I wasn't looking at my own face, so I can't really verify that is what happened. But this is what they're telling me that they both saw. And so when one of them mentioned that, he looked at the other one and was like, "Holy shit, you saw that too!"
Jesus.
So they started freaking out again, and then again they're still crying, and then
having meltdowns.
It shares with the group why he was crying and like the things that he said, like how that connected to him. And then same thing with the other one. I'm just standing there like, all right, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
So do you remember like anything? Like, did you start feeling anything weird, or were you just by the fire and then you blinked and then you were just somewhere else?
Blacked out. Like
Straight
I
time
don't
travel.
remember. Yeah, basically. Like I do not remember anything I said, anything that was happening during that time. I just remember looking at the fire, and next thing I know, I'm looking at the fire, and I look up at them, and they're crying.
Oh shit.
And that was probably the second most intense story that I've had with Hecate. My first one was way back when I was a little witchling and still not really knowing anything about anything. And I had I'm sure a bunch of people have experienced a type of like sleep paralysis. But I was having this dream essentially where I was sleeping, I was dreaming, and it was like super like bright outside. It was me, my stepdad, and my mom. We were kind of like in our car, stuck in traffic in Florida, and it was just like bright as the brightest day could ever be. But like I looked to my left, and we're all just like sitting in the car, like laughing. And I looked to my left, and there is like this kind of like torn down auto repair shop, but it was the only part of the street that was like in the shade. And standing at like right at the sidewalk was like this 9 foot tall black like hooded figure, and it like looked like darkness was just like coming off of it.
Ooh.
And I was like looking at its face, and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? But like it didn't make me feel like scared or like uncomfortable. It was more of just like a curiosity. Like I was like fascinating. Like I couldn't not look at it.
Fixated.
And then, yeah, exactly. But I didn't have any sort of sense of like fear. So that was comforting. But then I woke up and the thing was like at the foot of my bed and I couldn't move.
Oh shit.
And so I'm just like laying in bed, like looking at this giant like figure just like standing there. And then it didn't make the motion of just like if it putting its hand towards its mouth and just being like shh or whatever. But I kind of got the feeling like, you know, like I'm not here for you. Just basically just like accept what's happening right now. And so like it just like it walked through my room and then it went through the door. And like once I saw it like leave through the door, I just like I was trying to move so hard that I leapt out of my bed and just went onto the floor. And I'm just like, what the hell just happened right now? It's a little 14-year-old me just like not being able to process what is happening. Like this witchcraft shit is real. I don't know what's going on.
Damn. It's intense.
But come to find out, that was actually the same night where my mom, who was pregnant with my little sister at the time, she had not a similar dream, but she had a dream where a woman had visited her. And knowing Hecate and some of her epithets, she's also good with childbirth and watching like a midwife. And so she had essentially given a message to my mom about my stepdad, and she was just like, you know, I'm here. I'm going to protect her. Like, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm going to protect her no matter what. And so my mom, like that was the night that my mom like realized that she needed to leave my stepdad. And then come to find out, how long was that? 12, 13 years later, my sister is now a witch.
Hey.
And you guys weren't even raised together, so it's not like, you know,
she stopped living with me when she was like 3 or 4, so she was really too young to even understand anything.
She was already claimed by Hecate.
Exactly. Yep. And so that's why I think that night, that was my first encounter with Hecate, but that was more Hecate coming to claim her and not me. And it wasn't until like a couple years later where I went to like a big Hecate festival that they had done, where there was these priestesses of Hecate, and they had described some of their first encounters with Hecate, and I was like, oh shit, because I thought that was a demon at the time, because like I didn't know any better, and so like I thought this weird demon just appeared in my room.
14-year-old,
basically.
You was like, it's a demon.
That wasn't a demon. That was Hecate. That makes so much sense now. And then like after that, just everything started clicking. And then I found out that story about my mom having that same dream when I told her about it. And so, yeah, that began my interactions with Hecate and the clusterfuck of things that have happened since then.
Hey.
You know, it's interesting because I never really worked with Hecate before. And then through my friendship with Azazel and Tiana, the three of us have actually started working with her. And we have done some group projects for her, I guess you can say. And I forgot what it was, Azazel, but didn't somebody say that you were like, not a torch, that's so stereotypical sounding, but like, did you get, what is it called?
Oh, when they called me Hecate's bitch?
Yeah.
As one of her hounds.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so one of the women that was at one of the women that was at the festival that I went to, I actually became good friends with her. And she a self-identified priestess of Hecate, and she was saying that there are people whom Hecate essentially like quote unquote claims that to essentially be like her quote unquote bitch, in the sense of like her dog.
Right.
One of Hecate's sacred symbols is the dog. And so her bitch, or her hound, essentially tends to gather lots of people who either are just starting to work with Hecate, or they tend to like be centered around a lot of people who work with Hecate tend to gather around them, like just out of the blue. And so
Interesting.
for me and my coven brother, she was saying that we essentially were that. And it's happened literally so many times that like, I can't really dispute it. Like I've met so many people, and like since I started working with Hecate that also work with Hecate, that it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Without getting into too much of the details, actually, so the three of us, Azazel, Tiana, and I, we have done something called the Hecateion together, and it's actually kind of funny because we did it with a group of people, and aside from just the three of us, but the three of us, we have like jokes about our friendship. Like we've called ourselves the thruple. There's a funny story of why we've done that, but like the three of us, like we have a really good bond with each other. Not to say that we don't have that with the other people that we did this with, but we're like the thruple. Like people know us as that. So it's really kind of ironic because the Hecateion is essentially this 9-day ritual that you do with her. And at the end of the 8th day, I believe it is, she tells you whether or not she wants to work with you. And if she says yes, then you have the 9th day. If not, then you just end it right then and there. And I know Justin had done the Hecateion before and he was told no. And he was really surprised why, but then there ended up being a good reason of why he was told no. So it was, so Tiana and I did it for the first time. And out of the whole group of people that we did it with, just the three of us were picked. And afterwards, Justin was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. It was just us three." Like, of course,
I didn't know he said that.
I mean,
That's funny.
it was the thruple. Of course, it was the thruple. But so that was my first experience working with Hecate. I have done other things with her since, and I've had really interesting things happen. Without getting too much into it, because there's so many other spooky stories I want to tell. I've had keys literally just thrown at me, like out of nowhere, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's fine. Keys are a symbol of her, if you don't know. So that has been interesting. Yeah, I don't really want to go too into it because it's touchy talking about relationships with deities sometimes, especially in a public forum. Like sometimes you don't want to just share too much about it because it is a personal thing. But let's just say I've had a lot of interesting experiences since working with her, especially recently. It's been interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we all end up working with Hecate a lot together just because of that first initial experience with Hecateion. And like I know for me, I was having like really weirdly intense. Okay, first of all, I feel like you guys like talked me into doing the Hecateion with you guys. Like I didn't even really want to do it at first. 100%. Like I was like, I don't know if I want to work with Hecate. Like
I was like, we're the thruple. We have to do it together. It's the three of us. We have to.
I'll pull you into the spiritual practice.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'm doing this. And there were so many steps to it. If anyone listening wants to do it, I recommend like getting the book and like reading through it a little bit because there's so many things you have to like make and have on hand. Like there's so many steps to it.
It's a spiritual boot camp for sure. It is not an easy thing.
Yeah, like there's so many steps that we had to do that I remember that I was like, stuff. But it definitely puts you in the mindset of like doing it. It's really cool, especially if you're interested in working with Hecate. But like I had some crazy experiences even from the first night of meditation, like where, she's also associated with earthquakes. And I remember feeling like a rumbling under my feet. And I knew, and I had done this late. There were no trucks coming by my apartment or anything. Like there was no way that there were any cars nearby, like nothing. And there wasn't an earthquake in the area. So I was like super weirded out by that. And I remember at the same time that I had done another meditation a different night. And I had a weird dream about graves and like grave digging and spirits and like ghosts. And I remember that literally after that, I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw like a girl standing in the corner of the fucking room, of my room, in the dark. And I'm like staring at this, like, is that really there? Like, is it not there? Because, I know people think of ghosts, they think of like spectral apparitions or whatever, but this looked really fucking solid. Like, I thought there was someone legitimately in my room and I was freaking out. And so at night, when I'm trying to go to sleep, we play music on our like Google Home. And so we always play like rain sounds or like meditation music. But when I woke up, it was like this weird song. And it was like this girl singing, saying, I died here, like, I died here, like over and over again. And I was like, what the fuck? And I couldn't, after that, I was so paranoid. Honestly, I'm glad that I only lived in that apartment one more year after that, because I'm like, dude, there's some like burial ground shit happening here that I just don't know about. Like, that was just weird. I don't know
Aren't
that
you so
whole.
happy that we talked you into doing this with us?
Honestly, yeah, but at the time I was like, the fuck? And then and then like it's so funny when you call like your friends because you're like concerned about what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know if I should keep doing this because I'm kind of freaked out. My friend's like, yeah, that sounds scary. Keep doing it. Let me know what happens. I'm like, fuck.
It's like I love hearing about paranormal shit and like possessions and seeing ghosts. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super into working with the dead, although I know you guys are like very interested in that. It's not
Mostly
that
me.
yeah, you're the dark gothic one. I'm just kidding. It's not necessarily that I'm like scared of the dead or whatever. I feel like when I am like bothered by the dead, especially if it's like the dead that aren't like my ancestors, like I don't want to solve your unfinished business for you. I don't want to solve your problems. Stop sending me songs and weird shit and standing in the corner. Like I don't want you in my space. Solve your own fucking problems. Like I am not your problem solver. Like leave me alone. Like, and maybe that's because I feel it too strongly. Like when I was a kid, I was like so psychically attuned that I would wake up. This is gonna sound fucking insane, but I would wake up in the morning and hear like whispering in my ear before, like when you're not fully conscious yet. And as an 8-year old, I thought that meant that I was insane. So I tuned it out and forced my brain to stop doing that. So I don't know what that's about, if that's like a spiritual attunement to like the spirit world or what, but like I just I feel like I'm like gonna end up doing work with the dead, but I don't want to. Anyway, I prefer to work with ancestors because you know they're my people and they care about what happens to me in this life. Um, and specifically, like I love Samhain because I always get like really cool ancestral visits. One of the coolest things that happened to me was that the first Samhain I ever celebrated, and I remember it was funny because my boyfriend was like, I think he thought I was like being fucking weird in like a weird phase because I had just kind of flowed into like working with deities and like celebrating the wheel of the year and stuff like that at that time. And it was the first time I set up an ancestral altar for Samhain and put like all these pictures of like my relatives, his relatives, like even our passed on like pets and stuff. Like I posted pictures of all of them, and I was lighting candles and burning incense like every night of pretty much like the whole month of October. And we actually had gotten back from somewhere. I don't remember where, but I actually wasn't the one who freaked out. He's the one who freaked out because we came home and it was like the middle of the day. Like, I'm pretty sure nobody around us was like baking, but our entire apartment smelled like warm apple pie. And he started freaking out because he was like, that smells just like my grandma's like apple pie. Like, what the fuck? Like, he started almost like tearing up and kind of I mean that was like such a cool thing. I don't know, I like ghostly ancestral visits like that because it's like the small little things, and I think I prefer that to like stranger ghosts visiting me because I'm like stranger ghosts want me to solve their issues and my ancestors just send me the scent of apple pie. Okay, and that's my story.
So I have some ancestor stories as well.
Yes.
Kind of. Well, you'll see. So when I was a little kid, I grew up with my grandma living with us. And long story short, we were on the other side of the state. And during that day, I was probably, I think I want to say I was in second or third grade when this happened. And we were on the other side of the state visiting whatever. And while my mom and grandma and my aunt at the time, who took 3 different cars, they were off doing, I don't know, adult stuff. They dropped me off at one of my friend's house to go hang out with her. So I hung out with her. I ate lunch with her. And then, I don't know, like early to mid afternoon or so, they came up, they picked me up. We went back to our old place and we were about to start driving back to the house that we had on the other side of the state. And I was in the car with my grandma and we were, all 3 cars are pulling out of the driveway. And out of nowhere, I was like, wait, stop. I want to be in the car with my mom. And my grandma was like, what are you talking about? No, no, no. I was like, no, no, no. Like, get me out of this car. Like, I want to go with my mom. And I was in a car seat at the time because I was still kind of like a little kid. And I was sitting in the back seat. Like, I wasn't old enough to be sitting up front or anything, which is kind of funny because then I went in my mom's car and she had a convertible. So I was sitting up front without a car seat. It was fine. And yeah, at least I think I had a car seat. I'm pretty sure I did. I just remember I was young enough to have to still sit in the back seat of the car. I'll put it at that. Um, yeah. So anyway, so my grandma like stops the car. I get out. I get in my mom's car, and they're just like, "Okay, whatever. Like you're a kid. Like it's just easier to switch you than hear you fuss all the time, or like the whole car ride because it was about a 2.5 to 3 hour car ride."
Jeez.
Yeah. So we're driving back, and we passed through this town, and I wasn't even hungry, but I remember turning to my mom and being like, I want to get food. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, I just want to like stop and get food. She's like, okay, whatever. So we stop, we like get some food. I don't even eat it. Like we just got like fast food somewhere. And so then we get back on the road. So we're driving up towards like this big intersection type area of my state. And as we're driving on the opposite side of the highway, we start seeing all this traffic because there was a car that flipped upside down on the other side of the road, and it was like all mashed up, like it was all fucked up. And I remember looking at this car again on the opposite side of the road, and it's like a 4 to 5 lane highway on each side with a big barricade in the middle. And I see my grandma walking, like I see the back of my grandma walking in the woods, and she was wearing this outfit that I always saw her wearing all the time. She wasn't wearing it that day, but like she just wore this all the time, so I recognized her. And I go, Mommy, like there's grandma. And she's like, don't say that, that's a terrible accident, like don't say that about your grandmother, like she's ahead of us anyway. And I was like, but that's like her, like I see her walking. And my mom's like, no, no, no.
Ooh,
So
creepy.
we barely drive 10 seconds, and all of a sudden my mom gets a call on her cell phone. So I answer the phone because my mom was driving. And long story short, it was my aunt calling us to be like, yeah, your grandmother was in a huge accident, and she flipped her car on the other side of the highway, and she is getting medevaced, and because she blacked out. And yeah, so when I was a kid, I saw my grandma's spirit, I guess, walking into the woods because she was in a massive car accident. It was not her walking. That's not what she was wearing. She had been blacked out. She ended up needing to get a double pacemaker. She was flown to shock trauma. I was so young, they didn't even let me in to see her at shock trauma. And the really thing that kind of messes with me is that when we saw her car after they totaled it, because she kind of totaled, but we went to go like get the stuff out of the car the next like week or whatever, the whole back seat of the car, all the glass was shattered. And I 100% would have died if I was sitting back there.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting of like, I asked my mom to stop for no reason. I wasn't hungry. I asked to get out of the car at the last minute for no reason. And I avoided being in a car accident, but then I still saw my grandma's spirit or whatever. So that was interesting. So
Damn.
then when my grandma did finally pass when I was about 16 years old, I remember one day I was getting ready for school, and I used to live in a split level house. So my room is in the basement. So the way it worked, like you walk in the front door and there's stairs going up or stairs going down. And then you kind of have like this little foyer. So I was coming up from the basement, and I had this really bad habit of never taking my house key with me ever. Like one time I broke the window because I was trying to get my grandma's attention to open the door for me because I locked myself out. I was also in elementary school when I did this, so it wasn't on purpose.
Wow.
But
That tracks.
yeah. Yep. So super bad habit of never taking my keys ever, because my grandma lived with us, so she'd always unlock the door. So it was kind of not a big deal. I didn't have my key. So anyway, I remember coming up the stairs. It's like 6 a.m. I'm a teenager, so I'm just annoyed at life. So I like throw my backpack in the corner of like the by the front door, like literally just yeet it to the side, and then like go up the stairs to go in the kitchen to go get breakfast to get ready before the bus came. And I come back down the stairs after I got my breakfast, and perfectly placed on top of my backpack was my house key in the lanyard, like so
Dang.
nicely set on top. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I was like, well, thanks, Grandma. I'm not going to get locked out of the house today. I appreciate you. Because I would have locked the door behind me. There was also another time where I was talking to my dog, and I was just like talking about my grandma to my dog out loud, and then like a cup fell over in the other room, and that was Home Alone.
Aww.
But yeah, so I don't know. 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 I I've also had other, they're not necessarily ancestors, but have you guys ever had dreams of like dead friends?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've had a couple. So when my best friend died in 2020, which I remember posting about when it happened, ironically, that's fucking 12 hours later. That's what I meant to say, though. So it's funny how, kind
Hey.
of funny how that happens. Yeah, when she died, I remember having a dream and I got to talk to her in my dream a bit. I remember another girl I didn't know super well, but like I knew her enough to go to her funeral. I remember I was in the middle of having a dream, just a regular dream, and then all of a sudden she just like pops in. It was kind of like when you're watching TV and all of a sudden there's like a breaking news announcement and like your show gets interrupted and you're just like, ah, like that's what happened in the dream.
That's so
Like,
funny.
and I remember literally like being like, wait, the dream got interrupted. Like I felt it being interrupted by this girl's spirit. And I looked at my uncle who was in my dream and I was like, do you see her? And he was just like, yeah, she's just here to say hi. And then she just like waved really quickly to me and like gave me like this look that like I don't know, like the specific facial expression, and then like she left and the dream resumed. It was really wild. And then
Oh.
I went to her funeral and I had never seen her do this, but the facial expression that she had given me in the dream, they were talking about that because apparently she used to make that face a lot and her family like talked about it during her eulogies. And I was just sitting there like,
That's
oh,
creepy.
that's so like
Damn, what a
she did
trip.
that in the dream.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I've been talking a lot about ghost stories. I think we should start talking about some general ghost stories, but Tiana, why don't you talk some stories? Because I've been chatting for a bit about my experiences.
And you guys have like so many more ghost stories than me, I feel like. Most of the ghost experiences that I have are like just general kind of weird things that happen in this house we used to rent. So we rented this house with my boyfriend's family, and we all had different rooms. It was like this big 2-level house with like 5 bedrooms in it, and it had like 2 sides to it. So like on one side it was like, on one side it was like the master bedroom and another room, and on the other side it was like 3 other bedrooms and like a den. And so there was a lot of space on the second story where people could like run across or whatever. And I remember like his nieces and nephews were always over on the weekends, and his sister lived with us and she had a son, and then his brother lived with us for a short time and his daughter was always visiting. So there were a lot of people like in and out of this house and living in the house too. So we were pretty used to there always being people upstairs. And when we were downstairs, and even at some point, I think his cousin lived with us too. So there were just so many people like just in and out of this house. And there were a couple of times when we were at home alone, but we didn't realize it because, as I said, there's so many people like coming in and out that we'd be sitting there like watching TV or just like downstairs cooking or something. And we would hear like running footsteps. And we thought that was weird. We're like, I thought no one was home. And so we would go upstairs and check and be like, maybe so and so's home or something, or maybe so and so's like, just got home or something. And there would be nobody there. And these were like pounding footsteps, like someone was running around upstairs, like chucking shit. And this happened so many times. And I remember even a couple of times we actually thought his mom was calling our name because it sounded like, somebody saying like, somebody like saying his name or my name or something and like calling us upstairs. And I'd be like, did you hear that? And he'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, hang on, I don't remember. I thought your mom left. So I would go upstairs and check and there'd be like nobody there. And it happened a lot. I think like everyone there just mutually agreed that it was basically haunted and that there were just ghosts living with us and we were just like fine with it.
Did you guys ever talk about it with everybody else?
Yeah, like a couple of times when his mom was there, she heard the footsteps too. So, and then me and my boyfriend would be like, okay, so it's not just us experiencing this, like other people have heard this. And then we talked with his sister a couple of times and I asked her like, hey, have you ever been here and like felt like someone running upstairs or like calling your name? She's like, yeah, like one time it was just me and my son here. And, I thought my auntie, because she calls her my auntie, she's technically an adopted sister. She's like, I thought she was calling me, but then I went upstairs and nobody was there. And it happened all the freaking time. And it just was like, it's weird because the house was in a new development. So I don't know, like,
Doesn't matter that it's new. the land and the
I
spirits
mean,
of
yeah,
the
like
land.
literally the land, honestly. And the where that house is located, it's located pretty close to Indian reservation land. So I'm pretty sure
There it is.
there's some spirits there.
Azazel, do you remember? I'm pretty sure you were here for that when we were at my cousin's place in New York and we were hearing the running back and forth. Were you there for that?
Yes, I do remember
Yeah.
that.
And I
Yeah.
remember saying something to him like, "Oh man, your upstairs neighbors must be really loud." And he's like, "We're on the top floor."
Oh, what?
But it was
What?
so loud. And
Oh yeah, it definitely sounded like somebody was running upstairs, and they were just like, nobody's definitely up there, because like it was like during Corona that we were there,
Oh shit.
and so a lot of buildings in New York would just like they'll close off the rooftops,
Oh, okay.
and so like yeah, he was like, "There's no way there's anybody up there."
Oh fuck.
And it
was like,
happened
no.
more than once. Like it kept happening. It wasn't like a one-off or like maybe it happened like 4 or 5 times. It was insane.
Well, I mean, New York is such an old fucking city. You know that shit's haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Especially a lot of those buildings, and New York is so. It's such a clusterfuck of just like emotion and like literally nothing. Like even if you die there, like you'll never leave.
I mean, and
So,
not just that, but
I know
like
where to find your spirit.
right? He's gonna go to New York. All those like big cities, though, all around the world, not just America, but like the oldest cities in the world, they build on top of their old city structures. Like even New York has done that. So it's like how many layers of like old civilization, old bones, basically, are we building over? I mean, and New York's been there since what, the 1400s or 1500s or something. So could be maybe 1600s.
I think the 1600s.
Well, yeah, it's got to be 1600s.
We're not historians.
Yeah, clearly.
We don't know math.
that's not okay. Anyway, raising my point. Yeah, my old house that I lived in was definitely haunted, and it was really cool because then when I moved to the place afterwards, it was so nice being in a place. I don't want to call it spiritually dead, but like no spirits ever messed with me there. Like it just felt so quiet. And my old house dead. Before that,
the irony.
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, okay, so I was in 7th grade and I was switching my bedroom from one room to a different room in the house. And so the room in the house that I was switching to was pretty much completely empty. And I was in there one night on my laptop in like an AIM chat room with my friends. Remember those? Not like the rando chat rooms, but like all my internet friends at the time, like all like 20 of us from like some forum online. Like, we were so cool as kids do. And so we're in this chat room and I'm sitting in this empty room. The only thing that is in this room is a lamp on the floor next to me. And I am like in the middle of the room, propped up on some pillows, sitting on the floor with like my knees up and my laptop like on my legs. So I'm kind of like half looking at like the ceiling, but half looking at like the wall. And I'm just like on my computer, like I'm chilling. It's fine. No one's around. There's not even shades on the window because like the whole room is again empty. So I look up at one point, I just looked up and you guys remember those really old iPod commercials of the black figures dancing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I look up and I like kind of look at like my my door, which had been closed, so the door of the room, and I see this big black figure that kind of was like the iPod commercial figures, like a human shape, just comes sprinting through the door. And like as soon as I saw it, I was just like, and like as soon as I kind of like looked at it and like reacted to it, it immediately stopped and like it looked at me. It didn't have eyes, but it looked at me. And we both kind of just like
people.
Yeah, like the shadow thing and I both kind of just stared at each other for like a hot minute and we're just like, what? Because I wasn't expecting anything and I don't think they were expecting anybody to see them.
He's like, hold up, you see me?
Yeah, and then it was weird because it kind of did like, I don't want to call it a dance, but like, if you have like your leg, if you're standing up and your legs are like kind of like spread like hip width apart from each other and you kind of like bounce your weight from one end to the other, like back and forth really fast. it kind of like
What the
did
fuck?
that like bouncy type thing. It did it like 3 times or so, like 3 or 4 times, and then it just like immediately stopped, went back through the door, and like flew back through the door. It came in, and I was just like, "What the fuck was that?" And I'm in this chat room,
Wow.
flipping out to my friends. I'm just like, because like up until that moment, like I'd never experienced the house being haunted. Like I never had anything happen. Like I said, I can remember. So I it was completely out of the blue. And they kind of calmed me down because everybody in my house was asleep, and like this was supposed to be my new room, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go alert the whole house because it's like, I don't know, 1 a.m. probably or something. And I was like, whatever. They calmed me down. So maybe like 45 minutes later or whatever, I'm still sitting in the same spot, have not moved. Again, no one's in the room with me. um, and I look out the window because where I was sitting on the ground, you could see the moon and the trees and and stuff. And because the back of our house was to a forest, and there's shadows on the window because of just how like the lighting was. And I'm just looking out the window, and all of a sudden, I see like a head pop out from the shadows, like a black head just pop out. It's like as if somebody like literally pops their head in your room, like only their head to like say hi or something. It pops its head out, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And like freaking out. And then like as soon as I like lock eyes with it, quote unquote, it didn't have eyes, but we looked at each other. It like immediately went back into the shadows, and I left that room. I did not stay in the room anymore after that. I was like, okay, bye.
I guess this is not
so
for
that was
me.
the first time I saw a ghost.
Jesus.
I ended up staying in that room, but yeah, I was like, that was wild. But I also had crazy things happen in that house too. Like one time I was there alone and I was in the dark and I was feeling really creepy. And then all of a sudden I felt a ghost grab my ankle while I was in the bed. And the second I felt it grab my ankle, my dog started like trying to attack like the air. And my dog was not like an attack dog. So like whatever it was, like he saw it. I remember also asking my mom once, like when shit started happening in the house, like I was like, Mom, do you believe in ghosts? And she's like, yeah, I see one here all the time. And I was like, what? My mom.
And you never mentioned this.
Yeah, I was like, you never said anything. She's like, oh, I thought it was your grandma. And I was like, what? I
She's
had another
comforted
time in the
by
same
this
house. Yeah, so I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was like, hey, girl, like, I know this doesn't sound crazy, but I think my house is haunted. And she was like, she doesn't believe in that. So she's like, okay. What? And I was like, all right. So then she came over one time with a mutual friend of ours who claimed to be a medium, but like I wasn't really into any of that stuff. I mean, I was, but not really. And this girl that my friend brought, I wasn't really friends with, so I never talked to her about the house. My friend never talked to her about the house. Like she was just like my best friend was coming by to like pick something up, I think, or whatever. Or, like they only stayed for a couple minutes and then left. And apparently, when this girl got back in the car with my best friend, she turns to her and she's like, I didn't want to say anything because I don't really know Ashley like that, but there was like this really dark entity that was in the corner of her room the whole time we were in there staring at us. And after that, my friend was like, so maybe there's a ghost in your house. And I was like, bitch, I told you there's a ghost in your house. Yeah, I mean, just kind of close it because I have a lot of ghost stories. I've had one similar to you, Tiana, where I've heard voices. I went to a wedding and we were staying at this bread and breakfast, and my friend and I were splitting a bed and we were trying to go to sleep. And I remember we kept hearing like somebody's TV was super loud, and we were just like, God damn, they really gotta lower their TV. And then after maybe like 5 minutes, I looked at him and I'm just like, there's no TVs in this bed and breakfast. We know all of our friends are asleep because we rented out the whole house.
Jesus.
But I've also had like cooler things happen. Like I have a ghost cat that follows me around that other people have seen.
Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper. I had a kitten I had to put down when he was 4 months old due to something called FIP. It's a really tragic disease that kills him slowly. So he died from that. And ever since then, like I'll feel him come on the bed. He'll come and knead on me. There's times I've thought it's my other cat, so I'll just like go to grab them, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. It's Jasper.
Oh, it's Aaron.
There's times I have taken my cats to be like my mom watched them, but I'll still see a cat running around. I've had my friends see this cat. So ghosts are pretty crazy, but the ghost cat's cool. He can chill with me. He's fine.
Yeah, ghost cat. I love ghost cats. We had one in the house
you saw one
in Georgia.
You saw one like last year.
Oh,
we were on a call together when that happened too.
Oh,
wasn't that my cat?
Yeah, it was your cat.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, R.I.P. Nix. But yeah, that we had a ghost cat in my house when I lived in Georgia when I was in high school. And it was this really like orange tabby that you would just like literally see just run across the room or run across the hallway, or you'd be eating at the dinner table and it would just like cuddle up next to your leg. And I had no cats at the time,
You're like,
so like it was just weird that we
okay.
all, literally everybody in the house noticed it. We were just like, all right, whatever, it's just a ghost cat. It's fine in this completely newly built neighborhood. Um, but yeah, I remember I didn't like. I thought it was like kind of like a joke that me and my family were just like saying to each other, because like I was kind of like into witchy stuff, but like not like super into it.
Yeah.
And then one of my close friends came by, and he noticed it, and it was before we really talked about anything witchy or anything psychic. And he was a very like he's very big into Catholicism, but he also recognized that he had some sort of like psychic ability to like hear ghosts or stuff like that.
A lot of Catholic people do.
For real.
And he noticed it at my house once, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And this was before we kind of like, it was when we like just started becoming friends. And then there was one night where he was like, yeah, you know, there's this weird thing that kind of like, it's in my house. I don't really know what to do about it. And I had been to his house a couple of times, but it was like during the day, so I didn't really know, like, I never really sensed anything.
Yeah.
I had slept over his house a couple of times, and I realized that every time I slept over at his house, when we would walk to school, because he lived maybe like 5-10 minutes from the school, we would pass through this graveyard. And it was like right behind a church that was next to the school. And the easiest way to get through it, essentially, just to walk through the graveyard instead of walking, like, and taking another 5 minutes to go all the way around.
I love how kids like taking dangerous ass shortcuts.
And but it was a really small graveyard. It was like maybe like, I don't know, maybe 50 feet wide by 50 feet.
Damn.
It was.
Is it old?
It's a really old town. So it was kind of one of like those small churches, and then they had like a little graveyard next to it.
Got it.
But yeah, so we walked through there, and every once in a while, like I would notice there was this gravestone, and it was really elaborate because it had so it had like a regular gravestone on top of it, but it had just like a gray slab right over where the grave would be, and on the instead of like you know where it has like the name and everything like etched into it, it had a picture of this woman, and she was like in her wedding dress.
Ooh.
And it was just like,
that's not creepy or anything.
It was super creepy. And then he was like, once he noticed that I was noticing it, he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's the ghost that's in my house all the time. And I was like,
right?
What? What do you mean?
Excuse me?
And I think like a couple of months later, I was sleeping over at his house, and his mom was working late that night. And we had gone to bed at maybe, I want to say it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. Because we were like playing video games or whatever. And so I heard his mom come home, and she was like, you know, she said hi to us and told us to go to bed because it was a school night. And she went into her bed and went to bed. Like she like knocks out. Like every time like I've been over to her house, like his mom just like knocks out, doesn't wake up until the morning, and like doesn't leave her room at all.
That sounds nice.
That was great. But this one night, like I don't know, like it something felt off that entire night. And so we're sleeping in the bed, and like I kind of wake up because I'm hearing like some weird noises happening out in the living room. But there's no lights turned on, and his mom has like really bad eyesight, so she has to turn the light on to see anything, especially at night. And so like I didn't see any like light coming in through the bottom of the door, so I was like, okay, it's not his mom, and the cat's in the room with us, so like I don't know what's happening out there. So whatever. So I just turn over, go back to bed. Yeah, I turn over and go back to bed. And then I just start hearing running happening. And then at that point, Chris wakes up, and then he's just like, what is happening out there? And then I'm just like, at that point, like I'm fully alert. I'm just like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on. There's literally just like, you could hear like somebody like stomping their feet, like running across like the hallway. And then, so we're just like sitting there kind of just like, I don't know what's going on. And then bang, 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 bang. Like something just starts banging on his door. And at that point, I'm just like freaking out. I open the door. There's nothing there. His mom then opens the door, and she's just like, why were you guys banging on the door? And I'm like, we weren't banging on the door.
And of course she was like, yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just like, we're kids, we're fucking around. And I'm just like, we literally me and Chris look at each other. I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Both panicking
so we
kids.
close the door. Yeah, basically. we're like 15 years old. Again, like I'm still relatively new to the whole like witchy thing. So I kind of knew somewhat, but at that point I already hadn't started working with spirits or anything. But that was kind of one of the things that led me into learning more about protective magic, which I'll get into a little bit. So at this point in time, a couple years later, I had, gotten a little bit more under my belt about working with spirits. And so I had, thinking about this now, like it was kind of a bad idea, but I had only put wards up in my room. And so
fuck everyone else. I'm protected.
I was only ever doing like any sort of like witchcraft in my room. So I figured, it's going to be contained here or whatever. Which, I mean, I might mention that later, but it was contained in that room. So nothing that I didn't want in there could get in there, right? But there was one night where I was sleeping. It was the middle of the night, and I'm having this really weird dream. Like how Ashley was talking about earlier. Like it was kind of like something like a spirit interrupts the dream. So I'm having this really normal dream, which is abnormal for me because I never have normal fucking dreams. And like everything just like goes black. Ooh. And then I'm like, why am I in the void now? What is happening? And like this weird face pops up, and it look if I could imagine what a demon would look like, this looked like a demon. Like it literally, but it was like, I don't know, some weird like modern demon. It had like gauges in its cheeks, and you could see like its teeth.
Dude, like the brujeria like uncle in True Blood.
Yes, kind of like that.
He has like piercings and shit. He's all scary looking.
Yeah, it was fucking weird. And then like it kind of looked like not the Joker, but like I had like really weird like green-ish like hair, but it was wild. I don't know. It was freaky. Ooh. And I don't remember exactly what it said to me, but I just remember like waking up in a panic, and I'm like freaking out. And then my immediate thought was just like my little brother and sister. Like I don't know why I thought about them, but why I thought about them. And then so I opened the door, and then I hear my sister scream. And then my mom opens the door, and I start like running down to their room. But like the second I turn the corner, because their room was maybe like 6 feet away from my door. So I literally I leave my room. My mom turns on. So like by the time she like bolted to where our rooms were, and she flipped the light switch on. The second she flipped the light switch on, I felt something shove me into the wall, and then. My mom would like literally looked at me. She was like, because she kind of saw what happened, but at the same time, she was like barely awake, and so she was like, "Are you drunk? Like, what's wrong with you?" I'm just like, I don't know.
Child, are you drunk? It's just like shoved into the wall. Are you drunk?
Like, what are you talking about? So I run over to my siblings' room, and my brother, he's knocked out because he could. I don't know. Nothing could bother him. And my sister, who for some reason, being the youngest of us, at this point she was like 3, and she was sleeping on the top bunk of this bunk bed that they had, and she had fallen to the floor. But the way, like, she was so far away from where the top bunk was, like, had she fallen, she probably would have fell like right down, and she still would have been like within distance of realistically falling to the floor. She was so far away from that bed that she might as well have jumped. But as a 3-year-old, I can't imagine how they would jump from that thing to the floor for no reason. She knew how to get down. Like it was just like, it was weird. And so she's like on the floor screaming, crying. I kind of see something like drag her a little bit. And I'm like, so I go over to her and like freaking out. And come to find out that later on, my stepfather, whom I mentioned earlier, and this is nothing against Santeros and Santeria, but when my mom left him, he kind of took it to a very dark place. And so from what I'm assuming, and it wasn't that, he wasn't allowed to see the kids or anything. He just kind of lost it.
So he's just pissed off after they broke up?
Basically. So my theory, because I haven't spoken to the man, because I'd probably kill the man, but my theory is that he just started sending spirits to our house to like attack my mom. And they ended up going to like, I guess, my siblings.
Well, they went towards the thing that's the most vulnerable for your mom, and that's her children. Yeah, that makes sense that it would go to you guys, because that's going to hurt her the most.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was, I had hadn't seen. I think the next time I actually saw him, he was a very he's probably like 6'4", 6'5", built dude. When I saw him, he looked like he had not eaten in months. He looked like he lost like 40 pounds. His like skin color had went away. He was like totally like grayed out. It looked like he was on like, I don't know, like some weird meth addiction, but he doesn't do
Whoa.
drugs. I don't know.
Holy
He looked
shit.
horrible. But yeah, that really is what like kind of like led me into doing more and learning more about protection and understanding that you have to protect yourself, no matter what kind of spirits they are, gaining a good sense of how to protect yourself, and doing any type of spare work. Again, going back to the ritual possession from the beginning, you really have to
Yup.
know how to interact with these otherworldly beings, essentially.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me to being more, I guess, active. And my friends all knew that I practiced witchcraft, and they had their own spooky shit happening in this old ass town that we lived in. So I got to practice, going to their house and doing cleansings and getting really good. Like that was essentially what I did for like 4 or 5 years. That was my witchy boot camp, learning how to do that.
Damn, what a way.
Basically, yeah. And so like I had come up with my own methods and read some books about like doing protection magic. But going back to how the warding of my room and how I found out that it was legitimately warded. Because when I left, when we moved down to Miami after that, my best friend, he worked like maybe like 5 minutes down the road, but we lived like maybe half an hour away from him.
Yeah.
So sometimes since he would work in like the overnight shift, he would just stay at my house and then either go home in the morning or use that to like, he would sleep over at my house and then go to work because it was close by.
Yeah.
And so after we left, we still had the apartment for like another month. And so he had the key, and he would just like, there would be nothing in the house, like literally just be empty.
So he'd just be crashing in this like empty space.
Basically, he'd just like bring like a cot and then just like sleep in my room.
All right.
Just because like, I don't know, it was easier for him, and then he didn't have to deal with his mom at all. And he was I remember talking to him a couple months after that, and he was like, yeah, dude, I don't know what you were doing in that room. But like, I know you told me that you took all your quote unquote wards down when you left. And yeah, that room is like infested with spirits. I was getting attacked like every night. It was only because of the convenience that I stood there, but I hated that place. I don't know what the hell you did. And he had stayed in my room prior to us leaving.
And like have no problem.
Basically. But then like the second that I left and my room was just like absent of, and the only thing I did was really just like took down my wards.
Yeah.
And so I never really like properly, I guess, said goodbye to the spirits or did anything for them in that case. They kind of just like infested the room. So anything that was like trying to get in
got in.
It basically got in when I had already left.
Fuck.
I thought that was kind of hilarious and a good experience.
He's like, yeah, thanks.
That's kind of similar to when you were at your friend's house with the banging on the wall. Like, I remember you had told me that you told the ghost to fuck off, essentially. And so whenever you were there, like, the ghost was fine.
Yeah, that was
like,
the one and only time that she had
left.
done anything. And that was the first time I experienced it. But like after that, like I told her, I was like, you know what, just fuck off. Don't fucking come here anymore. Like, I will end you, ghost. I don't know how to do it, but I will learn how to do it.
I will obliterate you.
Don't try me, you goddamn weird bride. Leave my friend alone.
Weird bride.
Yeah, she only messed with him when I was not there.
Oh damn.
But yeah.
That's so funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's also kind of hilarious.
No, it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then it was interesting seeing how like I would like cleanse places, and then once I ended up joining with my coven, we had kind of not been like charged to do this, but one of these schools that my high priestess's daughter went to, it was a school for special needs kids. But prior to it being the school for special needs kids, it had been like, I don't know what kind of branch they are, but it's a type of Christianity where they kind of just like do like some weird like ecstatic thing, and they start like
evangelists.
I think so. The ones kind of where they look like they're
speak
getting
in
possessed.
tongues.
Yeah, they speak in tongues.
Yeah, evangelists.
So that's what the building was used for prior to that.
Ooh.
And they would use the main gymnasium.
Oh, so they just raise all that energy and didn't do shit.
Yeah.
Evangelists believe in spirit
Yeah,
possession, though,
right.
like getting possessed by the Lord and angels and shit,
Yeah.
and speaking in tongues and all the like prophecy
And so-
gifts and shit.
That being, and then after being bought out by the person who ran the school, using it for kids with special needs, with like autism and other types of mental disorders.
Damn, imagine you have like learning disability already and ghosts are fucking with you.
Oh yeah,
Jeez.
100%. So the principal, or the owner of the school, she was also the principal. She knew that my high priestess was a practicing witch, and they were kind of close friends. And so she would invite us to come to the school and do a cleansing on the school, so that whatever type of things would stop like messing with the students, because like she was aware that like it was happening, and the kids were also aware that it was happening. Like the weird stuff would be happening there all the time.
You know what's weird? When a school administrator has to be like, hey, can you and your witch coven come and cleanse this building that we're just trying to teach these kids?
I mean, that's when you know it's fucking real. But, you know, I think for me, like, I always believe that, especially like autistic kids who have like heightened sensory experience, they're way more sensitive to spirits, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
my
definitely.
boyfriend's nephew is autistic, and he would like constantly talk to his nana, which is my boyfriend's grandma, and he never even I don't think he ever met her. And he would like say, yeah, she looks like this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh shit. Like this kid's having like straight up visual conversations with her. But yeah, I mean, basically he was able to speak with his grandma or great grandma that he never even met. And they would have like conversations, and I would catch him sometimes just standing in the corner, like chatting. Well, I thought he was like chatting to himself, but then I'm like, wait, like, is he chatting to himself? Like, what the fuck?
Is this kid actually talking to spirit?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that because, you know, autistic children are so sensitive to like even energy changes that it just makes sense. So it's probably like the best thing that you could have done to cleanse that school for them.
Yeah, no, it was that was probably the most intense experience that I had doing any sort of cleansing.
What happened? Tell me the details.
So we kind of started off with, it was, first of all, it wasn't just my group. It was my group, another group, and then another group that was like from across the state, but they were coming to visit. So we were just like, oh, we're all 30 of us are just going to go.
Phasma with 3 different teams. It's like a witchy
damn, like
trip.
4 covens joined their forces just to do this shit.
You know, I mean, it's a pretty big school, so we all like took like different sections of the school, and so we first started off just like cleansing the area, and we're also like they taught us like a specific chant that we would do, so we would be doing that. And then at the time, like I had only been with them for a couple months, and so I barely knew the chant, and so I was using the chant that we would use in like prior to initiation. There's a similar chant that we would use. I would be using that one because I memorized that one. And so I was like, oh, fuck it, it's close enough. And so like we'd be doing that, and then it didn't. And this is honestly, this is another reason why whenever we play Phasmophobia, I don't like going into the bathroom in the school.
Oh, in the high school? I'm like over here thinking of the map, like the high school map in Phasmophobia as you're telling me this.
Yeah,
because when we were doing the school, it felt just like that. Like I really hate doing that
creepy
in the game.
You've died in that bathroom in that game.
The trauma is real, okay?
Anyway.
So I was doing the upstairs part of the school, and there was a bathroom that I went into, and I felt like I was getting my hair pulled. I felt like I was getting pushed around. I could feel like somebody just like screaming at me, but it was kind of like not like scream, like I couldn't like hear the screams like audibly, but like it felt like, you know, when somebody screams at you, you know, like that anger that you can sense for coming from that person.
Jesus,
that was just like filled in the bathroom. And so I'm like, I can only imagine at the time that I was like doing this, I was just thinking like, I can only imagine what these kids are feeling on a day-to-day basis, having to deal with this constantly. And then like all the leaders of the groups, they were in the main auditorium where all of the, like before when the school was like a church, that was where they would hold like their services. And so that was where the majority of the activity was happening.
It's like the epicenter.
And so we had to do like basically. So once like everybody else like came together, we would go back to the auditorium, do like a mass cleansing of the space, and then we would make like some offerings to some of the spirits outside the school. Kind of just be like, all right, y'all can leave this place the fuck alone. And so yeah, that was kind of a gist of what happened with that school.
Oh my God. That sounds really fucking intense. I don't know why, but like schools after dark, like the idea of being there is like generally kind of creepy to me. And then having to deal with like spiritual activity is just really fucking weird. I actually exercised a house. I think it was last year or the year before that. One of those.
I think it was last year. I
It was
remember you
last year,
telling us
right?
about
Yeah,
it.
I did tell you about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was
yeah. It
last
was
year
kind of
too.
weird because I mean it was during, COVID lockdown basically. But one of my friends called me up and she actually is from a town that was very close to where I used to live. And she doesn't live there anymore. She lives in like a totally different area of the state. So she's like, I'm not nearby, but these people are asking me for help. I helped them in the past, I think, and they think they're dealing with like spirits in their house. They're being like haunted or whatever. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I've never done this before, like never exercised a house or done anything remotely. So I'm like, yeah, do you have like any advice on how I'm supposed to do this? Because I've never fucking cleansed a house in my life. Like, I mean, I've like blessed my own space, but I've never had to deal with like yeeting spirits out of haunting people. So she basically like gave me like her own framework and I kind of like took that and made my own thing for them to do based on their personal situation, which basically it was an older couple and they live in this old town. It's not a beach town. It's like on the way to San Diego, but it's this creepy old middle of nowhere town. You have to take like a 2-lane road to get out to their house. It's this creepy dirt road house. Nothing is paved. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere. And there's just an old house. And what's weird is this guy had like a tree house. We'll get into that later. But just creepy old vibes. Like, I don't really know. But anyway, so I had spoken to them previously on the phone, and the husband was the main one experiencing spiritual interaction. The wife said she really didn't. I don't know. She said that it was because she's Christian and she like prays and wears a cross and was baptized, and that he wasn't baptized. And I was like, okay. And he said, like,
Are they bringing a witch to cleanse their house?
Right? Hilarious. I know. But yeah, so then, he tells me, like, yeah, they're bothering me and, assaulting me at night or whatever. And that he thought his room was haunted, basically. And I was like, okay. And so I pretty much set up my own ritual. I get there. I have to get there at before sunrise because the best way to do an exorcism for a house is to do it at sunrise. So that way, when you're sweeping out the spirits, the sunrise can cleanse the house. It's like a really great timing, like a astrological timing to use. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to exercise the house, start right before the sun's gonna rise. Anyway, so I arrive at the house. I explain to them what we're gonna do. I had a whole process of like going through each room and clearing the energy. Long story short, I really didn't think that their house was haunted. I thought that the energy was stagnant, which can happen if you keep a lot of clutter and don't clean your house enough, in my opinion. Don't clear the energy. But I also learned from Ashley when we had previously talked about her 2-level house that she said she felt like spirits hide from witches. So I was like, okay, I need to cleanse this.
Sure.
Oh, no. That is Azazel told me about that, which makes a lot of sense because once I started getting more involved in witchcraft, I mean, like, you're always a witch, you can get into this and you've always kind of had something there. But when, whenever I go to my uncle's house, like the new house that he bought, he's always like, this house is so haunted. We've seen things. We've like heard things, like things are just like exploded in front of us, like whatever. And I'm just like, this house isn't haunted. Like, this house is fine. Every time I'm there, I don't have anything happen to me at all. I don't even feel anything. But I also believe my uncle, and Azazel is the one that was like, yeah, the ghosts hide from the witches.
I mean, it makes sense because they obviously was very real to them. And so I knew going into this after having talked with you guys that, like, okay, I should just approach this as if it is, because really I don't know what spiritual activities happening, but I do want to clear everything out so they don't have any more problems. So I did that and everything seemed fine. He thought he was like cursed by local Indians because he yeah, he had like I don't know, went on their land one time and they told him not to. I think he just
He
had
stole
guilt.
their cow.
Yeah, I literally gave him some like sage that I had dried myself, and I was like, go offer this to the spirits of the land, like at the edge of their land, apologize, and like, that should be that. Like, I mean, to help your own guilt or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure it's not that serious. I don't think they would go out of their way to fuck with you, but whatever. And then, gave them the normal spiritual cleansing. So I think it was like a month later, they called me back. And this time I went and cleansed his like treehouse where he supposedly slept occasionally. This was the creepiest thing. I legitimately believe this was the area. I was like, okay, this is where the spirits are fucking at.
Wait, but did it look like the treehouse that was in Hereditary?
I have not seen that.
What?
Wow.
I have not seen it.
Interesting movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Anyway, this particular treehouse had a very narrow, steep ladder. It was wedged in between two big branches, and it was essentially just one really small room that he had created with like a twin bed and like a little counter on the other end. That shit was creepy as fuck. It was so creepy. It was in the middle of the woods, like literally. And it was just dark and like, oh, I don't know. I just got like the heebie-jeebies being out there. But yeah, so I went and cleansed that space, and that I legitimately believe was probably haunted because there was a lot of like creepy, staticky energy in there. And that I ended up cleansing again for them. But it was like,
Question, did you ever cleanse him?
I did, and I had him cleanse himself after. I cleansed everyone like with incense basically before we started. And salt and water.
Like, Sarah, maybe you're the problem.
Maybe you are the issue here. Yeah, no. I also had him do because they were kind of vaguely Christian. What's that psalm? It's like Psalm 45, or it's a lot of hoodoo practitioners use it. I had to look it up. Because I don't personally cleanse that way. Oh, okay. So I had him cleanse himself after the fact, like after.
Oh, okay.
Tiana,
No?
I think you should tell this story.
Literally every time you just start, it just like your computer starts glitching out. I can barely see you right now.
What the heck? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess. So anyway, long story short.
You want to try to tell one more time?
Honestly,
Let's see what happens.
Tell it, and then if the audio is fucked, I'll just cut it out.
Okay.
Because I think it might just be our internet connection, but if it's recording from your end, it'll probably record all the way through.
Okay. So long story short, I basically had him cleanse himself, do like a shower cleansing and uncrossing for 7 days, and I gave him a 7-day candle to burn, and I gave them like purified bread to bless their house and eat for all 7 days. And told him to do this specific specific psalm from the Bible, which now I can't remember because I'm not religious. I had to look this shit up. It's like a hoodoo practitioner thing, but I tried to give them something that they would recognize because they said that they were Christian and they would recognize that as being purifying for them and not necessarily something I didn't want to give them something that wouldn't resonate with them. So he did that, and that definitely helped. I haven't heard from them since. But one thing I realized about people who want their homes exercised is that they often think that there's activity happening when like nothing's happening, and they will keep bothering you. And so you really have to set that boundary of like, you're fine. You need to like either fix this, internally, whatever issues you're having, because there's nothing happening. Like if I was a con artist, I could make a lot of money off these people, but
it's like, sir, you need to get a grip.
Yeah, but when you actually want to help people, like you're like, okay, you're good. You're fine. Okay, hope you're doing well. Take care. Bye. Please stop emailing me.
I know. I've told friends this. So just like, listen, there's nothing in your house. You're just having a panic attack.
You're just losing your shit. Yeah. But I mean,
you should go see a doctor. There's nothing.
Oh, okay. But I do want to point out, like, it is an interesting concept, the whole thing of ghosts hiding from witches, because there was one time at my uncle's house where we were talking, like, every time I go over there, I'm just like, so tell me what's new. What's the ghost doing today? Give me the news update. And so he tells me about the ghost. And there was this one time where I was just like, yeah, I believe all that stuff. But like, because obviously he doesn't know like my extent of witchiness, but like, I'm not Catholic, and I'm pretty sure he knows. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't feel anything in the house. Are you sure this is happening? And then he starts talking about the ghost. And then all of a sudden I hear this knocking on the wall next to me. And he was like, see, that's the ghost. And I was just like, what? And I was like, nah. And I was like, okay, if there's a ghost in this room, knock on the wall again. I swear to fucking God, the wall, like the fucking wall knocked again. And I just started like, my uncle just gave me like this nervous look, and I just started hysterically laughing. And I was like, no. Like, and my uncle was like, well, what more proof do you want? And I was just like, no. If there's a ghost here, do it a third time. And my uncle was like, it's not going to happen a third time. It fucking happened a third time. It knocked again right next to me. But like, even though like that happened, and I can't deny that happened, it was so strange because there was I didn't feel anything. But I mean, it could have been my grandma. Like, there's been times where like on my grandma's birthday, my little cousins never met her because she passed before they were born. And they, like, one time my uncle was playing with his youngest daughter, my youngest cousin, and she said she was like playing telephone because she's a little kid, and she went to go. She like, the phone was ringing, it was fake, and so she answered, and she's like, oh, hello. And then my little cousin looks at my uncle, her dad, and she's like, oh, it's for you. And he's like, oh, who is it? She was like, it's your mom. And he's like, what? And then apparently, like, right as she said that to him, because she's like 3 or 4 in this, like, this big black shadow just went like flying across the room, and he was so creeped out. And then
Mom, stop.
Well, there was another part of this that, like, I forgot the exact details because I was just like, oh shit. But like, she said something else to him of like, oh, she's saying hi or whatever. And my uncle was like, well, who told you that? And she was like, I can't tell you where I'm hearing. Like, she was like, I can't tell you. And he was like, what are you talking? Like, how are you talking to her? She's like, I can't tell you. The kicker of all this is that this happened on my uncle's birthday.
Creepy.
Yeah. And she was too young. I mean, she knew it was like her dad's birthday, but she
put the
too young
together.
To like make that connection of like, my grandma's just talking through her to say hi to my uncle, like her, or like my uncle's mom.
Yeah. Damn, creepy.
Yeah,
dude, kids, I don't know. That's kind of like a thing, though, when you're young, right? I feel like a lot of people who become witches later in life or come to witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, have those experiences, you know? Like, I had a lot of, I know I previously mentioned the whole, like, whispering thing. That makes me sound insane. But literally, when I was young, you know, I'd be, like, on the edge of that, like, sleep-waking state, and I would hear, like a just 1,000 voices. Not anyone talking clearly, but you know that, like, whispering, like, where you can hear a lot of people whispering, that's what it would sound like. And it scared the shit out of me, and I was like, fuck that. No, thank you. But there have been many times that I've had, like, intuitive, I don't want to call them psychic moments, I don't know. I'm more of, like, a feeling type person where, like, I just get a sense. For example, my parents were getting divorced. They had a very violent divorce. My dad's insane. And he came to visit us. At the time, we lived in a different state than where we originally lived, where my dad was living to work. So we kind of like moved to this other state with my mom, and then they like separated. And then basically he came to visit us, long story short. And the whole time we're supposed to go like visit him for a day. And he rents this van and he shows up. And I'm like 7 or something, or maybe 8 at this point. And I just know something bad is going to fucking happen. And I'm literally like screaming my head off, like, I don't want to go. Don't make me go. And I literally just don't want to fucking go to this thing, like, at all. And so, you know, basically, my mom is like, you're just going to go for the day. It's not going to be a big deal. Like, you guys are going to go I think we're supposed to go to the movies or something. And my aunt's there. And she's like, it's going to be fine. You're fine. And I'm like, no, something really bad. Like, I don't want to fucking go with him. Don't force me. They fucking physically have to shove me into this van because I am not getting in this car. Like, I'm not getting in this car. I'm like doing that thing they do in movies with the kids where they're like holding the doors with their hands and like not trying to get in this fucking car right now. And my aunt is like shoving me full body into this vehicle. So long story short, my dad flew us back to our old home state after the fact that day, like basically kidnaps us and gets custody of us like all in the same day. Because like what happens when your parents are getting divorced and the divorce is filed in like our home state, but we were living in a different state, is that he can get immediate custody. So it led to like a lot of like chaos. But yeah, shit like that is like, I feel like I have so many stories about that, like growing up where I knew things that were like off or like some bad shit was about to happen or like somebody's dead and I like know who it is before they tell me type shit.
Yeah, I have a lot of little things. Like just the other day, I had like something so small where I was thinking about like memes I wanted to post on the Seeking Witchcraft page because like I've been needing some new memes recently, and I was laying in bed just thinking about this, and then one of my friends texts me, and she never texts me about memes like ever, and she was just like, "Hey Ashley, I found a meme you should put up on the page," and I was literally in the middle of thinking this. But I have a funny story with Justin actually. So, Justin, do you want to tell the story?
What story?
Or Azazel? Oh Jesus! Obviously, Azazel and Justin are synonymous, which I'm pretty sure we already talked about on the incense episode.
So I have this quote unquote black hand that I got from Michael's.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, please explain what this black hand is, because that sounds wrong.
It's a plastic, I don't know what kind of thing, maybe wood, I don't know. But it's a hand, and it's painted black. And it's got a bunch of like astrological symbols on it. I guess it's kind of supposed to look like a palmistry hand. I don't know. Whatever. I got it at Michael's. And Ashley has a very similar but rather large version of the same one that I have. And there was one time where,
which tracks?
There was one time where, what was it that you were playing with the hand and then you told me to stop playing with it? Or
so my black hand is usually not in my room. It's usually like on a wine bar that I have by my kitchen. And for some reason, one day I decided to bring it into my room, and I don't know what we were doing. Maybe we were like watching a show. No, we were like playing a game or something. There was something happening where we were talking to each other through like Discord probably, or like some sort of chat. And our video wasn't on. And I said something to him because I started like I picked up my black hand and I was kind of like playing with it, like, like holding it and shaking it and stuff. And then out of nowhere I go like, do you ever just play with your black hand?
Meanwhile, I'm like literally as she's saying this into my ears, my ear holes. I'm literally playing with I'm like playing with the black hand myself, and I had just picked it up, and I'm like, "Why are you psychic? Like what? How did you know this?"
That's such a Ashley mood, though. She does
that
shit
all
like
the
that.
time. It's just like
all the
stuff,
time.
All the time.
Yeah, sometimes like you guys both kind of do this, but Ashley's just more loud about it. Like she's more in my face about it, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I wonder how Ashley's doing. I miss, Azazel, whatever. And then like one of you guys will message me or message in our group chat or something being like, hey, I miss you guys. How are you? And I'm like, they heard me.
They heard you through the ether.
It's funny because I feel like I have all these little tiny psychic experiences, but if I try to explain what happens, like I don't know what to tell people. Like I remember my one friend, when I told her I was into witchy stuff, she was like, "Are you psychic?" And I was just like, "Well, I would say no, but my other friends would probably be really bad at me." I said that, and she's like, "Well, what can you do?" I was like, "I don't know, just hanging around with me long enough."
The experiences of having like psychic intuition or whatever, in psychic insight, whatever you want to call it, is not necessarily synonymous with how it happens in films. But there are just moments where you have like a feeling of something and then you say something and you contact someone else or something.
2 of those moments happened prior to us getting on this call when Ashley was like, hey, Tiana messaged, and I looked at my phone and Tiana had just messaged. the
Yeah,
stack.
literally.
And then we
Literally.
get on the video call, and it's me and Ashley here. And then she's like, "Oh, I wonder where Tiana is." And then Tiana's like literally pops up the second that she finishes that sentence. Like, oh, okay. I guess she's just conjuring everybody now.
So last weekend, I was at my friend's like birthday party, and I was literally talking about Ashley and Justin. And I was like, yeah, you know, me and my friends, we like do, and I was like talking about being Wiccan or whatever to these random, I don't want to call them normies, but like just like my mundane
Wow.
friends. But like they're not into witchcraft, okay? That's what I'm really trying. It's not an insult.
Those
Just they're
cowards.
just yeah, they're just not into witchcraft, okay? You know, so I'm trying to like explain to them stuff that they probably think sounds insane. And that's totally fine. But I'm just like, yeah, but my friends are great. And we're doing this, like, you know, stuff, blah, 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 whatever, because we always do workbooks and stuff together. And then she calls me. She's like, hey, I was just thinking about you. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God, that's not the first time that happened. That happened one time on an outer court call when I was with Azazel and we were in Salem. Do you remember that? So, okay. So we were in line for like this store and it was a really long line. And I went to go visit Azazel, unfortunately, during one of our first online outer courts that like, I wasn't leading the outer court. I was just like kind of part of it. I wasn't in the outer court. Like I was an initiated member, but like I was helping out with it. So I felt really bad that I couldn't be there like the first outer court meeting, even though it was just online because of Corona. So I'm in line with Azazel to like go into the shop and I'm like, I'm going to just drop in real quick and say hi because like I had the link and whatever. And I remember I dropped into the chat and all of a sudden people started giving me like their eyes kind of widened and they kind of like gave me a look and I was like, damn, okay, all right. I wonder what happened. Yeah. And I was just like, blah, blah, blah. And then I hear my high priestess Arlie, she was like something, like a really psychic bitch, blah, blah, blah. And like she like says that about me sometimes. So I just go, are you talking about me? And she like jumps because she didn't see that I joined in on the call. And she was like, I was just talking about you. And she was like, I was just telling the outer court how you're like crazy psychic and then you disappeared. And I was just like, oh, well, hi.
That's so freaking funny. That happens to me all the time.
We were debating for like 20 minutes or whether you should join the call or not because we were just standing in line and everything's going to be noisy.
That's so
You're like,
funny.
oh, you know I'm going to do it. And then you do it. And then there's like, oh, the psychic bitch.
Fucking Ashley. She's back on her.
The exact moment
She's
I joined
on
is
her
when they're
shit.
talking about me. Back on my bullshit. But like, I don't know. I feel like it's on one hand, it's kind of on brand for me as a person.
It very much tracks.
So I don't know. You know, Azazel, you should tell this story.
Oh, so there was a thing when I was back in Miami, me and a couple of my witchy brethren, we were, well, a lot of us are not terribly hood, but sometimes we get a little hood. And so we make a lot of jokes before and after circle. And so we decided to mix together some ODB and just say, I'm honestly scared to say it now.
I'm about to say, I was like, oh God, he's going to say it.
We smashed
just say
some
it,
ODB to essentially be like schmotty. And so it's just something that we would do, right? And so I went to go visit Ashley for the first time when I was making my road trip up to my new home.
In person. Well,
yeah,
first time
being in her apartment.
Like we had met in person beforehand.
And so I'm there and I'm kind of like explaining to her the whole like schmotty thing. And literally...
And I'm just like, you're gonna piss off the gods if you keep saying this. He's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, no,
so
you're gonna piss somebody off.
You say
keep
that?
saying
and then, literally, like 2 minutes later, there was a glass holding a tea light.
He said schmotty again just to fuck with me, and I'm just like, someone's gonna get mad.
So there is a tea light in a candle holder that is it's on the bar. We are like 20 feet away from
brand
where
new
this thing
tea
is,
light.
right? And so I say it again just to annoy her, and the goddamn tea light candle holder, it splattered everywhere. I don't know what
exploded.
Exploded.
It exploded. It was a brand new tea light and a brand new holder, and I looked at him, and I'm just like,
it's like not even phased, Ashley.
It's never happened before. I don't know why that happened.
Ashley's like,
I still think it was Ashley and her psychicness.
Wow.
She just brought that into the universe.
She made it happen.
Prior to that, nothing bad had ever happened to me saying schmotty. Okay.
Wow.
But know, it's kind of funny because there was another time where I was really angry one time, and I went to my high priestess's house and was just like like upset, and like apparently her candle was just like going crazy, and she's like, "I've never seen this happen before. They're gonna burn down my house." And I was like, whatever.
No, she's just like Jean Grey secretly.
Right? Damn. Pyrotechnics are real.
No, I think the only like weirdly psychic thing that has outwardly happened like that to me, besides the Smarty thing, because I still think that was actually, was.
Excuse you. I'm not trying to break my own brain things, but okay.
When I was leaving Georgia, a lot of my friends. I worked at this really like hippie store called Earthbound. I hope some of you have heard of it. If you've never heard of it, check to see if there's one in your area because it's amazing.
True.
So yeah, everybody that worked at that store with me, they were all a bunch of potheads. And so they decided to throw like a going away party for me. And one of the guys that worked there, he was like, "So I know we usually smoke, but I got shrooms."
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, "Well, I don't know when we'll be able to try this again." So I did it, obviously. But there was so many of us, and there wasn't enough shrooms. So me and my best friend Chris, who was talking about earlier, the second one, and mind you, he is a 6'7" gargantuan of an Italian.
Wow.
He's not really like large. He's just very tall and slender. So we decided we were going to split a shroom. So enough that would be what essentially usually for one person. We split that amount between both of us. I don't know if that has anything pertaining to the rest of the story, but I think it does. And so at one point we are, it already hit us. We're like hours into this already. My friends, we were in my friend's not basement, but it was like his garage. And his grandma had like a couch that was just in there, and there was like a recliner and a couple other chairs. And I remember it was a really long. I remember this couch specifically because this couch is like obscenely long. Like it was longer than any other couch I had ever been in. So there was like 5 of us on the couch, and there's still another 2 feet to my right that's just like empty couch. And I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. So everybody to my left, there's maybe like everybody else was to my left. And they're all talking and chatting, and I'm just like petting this fuzzy blanket. And I was like, "Oh, this blanket's like weird blue fire." I was like tripping out over this goddamn blanket.
Weird
and
blue fire.
Next thing I notice, in this empty space that's next to me, I look over because I start feeling something like rubbing my shoulder, and I'm like, "What? What is happening?" And so I look over, and there is a woman who I had never seen before, just like crawled up onto the couch. Leaning up on me, and she's like rubbing her finger on my shoulder and looking up at me, and I'm looking at her like,
"Ew,
who the fuck are you? Like, what is happening right now?"
Oh, fuck.
and then I look up, like look straight, and my best friend Chris, he's in a recliner, cocooned in this giant blanket, and just like looking around, just like people watching. And then I noticed that he looks exactly where this woman is, and like his eyes kind of go wide because like he didn't recognize her. And then he looks at me, and like in my head, I heard him say like, "Are you seeing that right now?" And then
fuck.
in my head, I'm like, "Did you just talk to me?" Because his mouth did not move. And so then we made the realization that we just like psychically talk to each other telepathically.
Oh shit.
And then so we both made like the facial expression like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Holy
and then the
shit.
girl had disappeared. And then like I was like, I need to.
Wait, was it a real person? She wasn't a hallucination?
Or a hallucination. I don't know what the fuck it was.
Damn.
Oh my god.
That reminds me of
How hard were you guys tripping? How hard were you guys tripping?
Apparently a lot.
Apparently very hard.
Yes. But yeah, so it was that telepathic experience, but also the ghost thing that possibly happened may have been a hallucination, but we also shared a mutual hallucination. So I think that's a little weird.
That is pretty cool.
Which is why I think that it was a ghost.
Honestly, it reminds me,
yeah,
okay, maybe because I'm rewatching Haunting of Hill House, but it reminds me of the oldest brother. You know what I'm talking about? Hopefully, I mean, spoiler alert, but damn, it's been out like 3-4 years. So if you haven't seen this shit, then that's your fault. But the brother
finished it.
At the end, you know what I'm talking about? You never finished it?
No, it's okay. You can spoil it. I'm not going to watch it.
Ah, shit. Okay, well, at the end, basically, the eldest brother doesn't believe in ghosts, and he thinks like he, at the end, all the people that he saw in the house, there were like people fixing the house, like workers and stuff, he thought were really there, they were ghosts. And the dad tells him, he's like, wait, he's like, hold up, go back to that story. He's like, what? Mom was fucking crazy, dad, blah, blah, blah. And like, he's like going on this rampage because that's his thing, is that everyone's mentally ill. And he's like, no, before that. He's like, the fucking worker fixing the clock, wearing old overalls. He's like, that man was never there. I never.
Oh my god, that worker creeped me out.
Yeah, but that was such
hard.
a crazy twist, because the whole time you think kind of he's like acting like in denial, in the voice of reason, whatever, or that he just never experienced anything. But it turns out he was like the most psychically attuned, you know, for seeing like all these fucking ghosts the whole time, and he just never realized it. That kind of reminds me of what you're explaining now. Like, you know, like you look at something and you see someone and like don't realize like they're a fucking ghost. Like, oh, they're not actually at this party. Like, oh fuck.
So, I have some related, I don't want to say ghost stories, but just like some crazy things that have happened to kind of wrap up the episode. So one time I remember I experienced sleep paralysis, and when it happened to me, I actually wasn't scared. I didn't like see anything in the room or anything. And like, I knew what was happening. And I was like, you know what? This is perfect. I'm going to try to astral project, because I always hear these people talking about this online. This is my opportunity. So I remember I sat up in my bed, and it was really hard to do, but I sat up in the bed, and then I picked up my left arm, and I could literally see this like spiritual arm like floating out of my body. Like it was invisible, but I could see it. It was the strangest thing. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. This is so cool. And I was so stoked. But I had seen Insidious a bunch of times. And if you've never seen that movie, the short version of it is the kid in that movie astral projects, and he goes too far away, and then he gets like locked away by a demon.
And definitely.
Yeah. So then I started thinking of that, and I was like, well, wait, like, I don't know how to come back. I need to research this, or when it happens again, I could do this again. Well, it never fucking happened again, unfortunately. And I still think of that moment, and I'm like, that's one of the coolest things ever. There was another time when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. I was cleaning my room or whatever. I was doing something, and I had a TV in my room, and I was watching something on Cartoon Network, probably like Powerpuff Girls or something. And whatever was playing on my show, I used to always, I'd seen that episode before. So like it was very, very much a rerun, to the point where I knew all the words of the episode. And so I wasn't facing my TV when the show came on, but I was like saying what they were saying in the show at the same time as them, because I'd seen that episode so much, and I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna like repeat what they're saying as they're saying it. And then like, I did this maybe for like 2 or 3 minutes, because I was, I don't know, facing the other way, fucking with something. And then I turned around to like look at the TV, and then the whole show restarted from the beginning, and everything that I had been saying like hadn't happened yet. And the whole show just restarted. And I was just like, what? Like, what just happened? So I remember that was like a glitch in the Matrix that I had when I was a kid. I used to always think I had this superpower when I was a kid, that I couldn't tell anybody about it, because I thought it would stop or it wouldn't be true anymore, and it would go away. But I'm going to tell you guys an adult, so goodbye superpower. I used to always think that I had this uncanny ability that any TV show, or like any episode specifically that I wanted to watch, if I wanted to watch it, it would come on the next day. All the time. Like every single episode I ever wanted. I'd always get to like rewatch my favorite episodes.
Kid manifesting thing that I've ever heard. Right? That's so good.
And like now I feel like that just tracks for me as a person.
It's so true.
This out loud. Yes. All right. Well, okay. So to wrap up our very real experiences that we've had, because we've had a lot of them, I am going to end this with a very, very fictional ghost story. And this is a ghost story that I just keep in my back pocket for whenever you're around a campfire and you need a story. I used to go to summer camps growing up, so this was the story I would always tell people. So it's called The Keyhole. It's my favorite ghost story, and this is what it is. So this guy goes to check into this hotel one night, and when he goes to check in, it's an older hotel, and he gets an actual key, not like the little cards that they give you, like an actual physical key. And when he goes to check into the room, the receptionist is like, okay, like, here's your room. The number doesn't really matter, but he's like, here's your room. It's number like 14. Whatever you do, though, don't look at the, or like, don't mess with the room across from you, like number 21 or whatever, some shit like that. And the guy's like, why? And the receptionist is kind of like spooked. And he's like, just don't mess with that room. Like, don't worry about it. And this guy's like, why would you tell me? But okay, whatever. I'm going to bed anyway. It's late. Like, I got to go. So he goes and he checks into his room and he goes to bed. And, or I'm sorry. He goes to check into his room. Before he checks into his room, he looks at the door because it's across from his. And he's just like, well, now I'm curious. So he tries the doorknob. Nothing works. Like, it's locked. So he was like, well, let me look through the keyhole to see if I see anything because it's an older hotel. And so he looks through the keyhole and he can't see anything. All he sees is like this really bright red color. So he's like, okay, they probably covered up the door with something, whatever. So he's kind of like trying to see if he sees anything past this redness, but there's nothing there. So he goes to bed, like goes in his room, goes to bed, goes to check out early the next morning, and it's a different person at the receptionist desk. And so he's checking out and he was like, hey, I have to ask, like, what's up with the room across from mine? Like, I tried to ask the receptionist last night and they were really spooked about it. And the receptionist was like, oh, well, something really tragic happened in that room. A couple years ago, a guy came and he murdered his whole wife and his family in that room. But there was something really weird about this family. They were all white except for their eyes, which were really like blood red. So the story is that when he was looking through the keyhole and all he could see is red, is that the ghost eye was just looking back at him.
Scary!
On the other side door.
Creepy.
No, I'm going to dream about that. Thank you for my nightmares.
Right?
More than they already are.
Nightmare fuel.
So that's my back pocket ghost story to tell around a campfire. So feel free to take that and pretend that you made that up yourself.
Yes.
It's completely fine.
Did you make that up yourself?
And I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Oh.
No, I did not. I read it in a book somewhere, I think. Or, I think actually I probably went on Google to like look up like scary stories to tell around a campfire before I went to summer camp. And I think out of all the stories I read, like that was the one, because I remember I'd read more than just that one when I got to the keyhole story. That was the one that really stuck out to me, that I was like, oh, that's so creepy. I was staring back at him. Like there's like an inch of wood in between their faces. I was like, that's the story.
Creepy as hell, so...
It's really creepy when, like, the more you think about it, it's just like, oh, okay. You're just staring.
Terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so thank you so much, Tiana and Azazel, for coming on Seeking Witchcraft and talking about your experience with ancestors and deities and ghosts and cleansing and miscellaneous psychic stuff and just the paranormal in general, because this is really the time for it. It is spooky season after all.
Ooh.
If anybody's listening to this and feels inspired to tell us your spooky stories, please do go post on Witches Seeking Witchcraft. We would love to hear your stories. We've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes about ours. So we would really, really love to hear them, especially because all the admins are all three of us. So
tell us your stories.
Yes, please tell us your scary stories. And even if you could tell us a fictional one. Tell us a creepypasta or copypasta.
Creepypasta. No.
Well, it'd be a copy pasta of a creepypasta. Anyway, come tell us your scary stories. But in the meantime, thank you again both so much. How can people find you if they want to reach out and ask you about certain things? Like, I'm sure Azazel's going to get a lot of ritual possession questions.
Oh, please send them my way.
How can they find you to ask you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can listen to my podcast, and I will speak through you through the astral realm. You can also join my Patreon if you'd like to do that. And Feast of Torches. It's pretty much Feast of Torches for everything there.
I was about to say, so what is your Instagram handle? And what is your Facebook? And what is your Patreon?
Feast of Torches.
If you Google Feast of Torches podcast, it all comes up. It's very helpful. I have done this.
Mm-hmm. But if you only look at Feast of Torches, you're going to get other things.
Oh, yeah. Feast of Torches podcast definitely has to be searched to find him. Mm-hmm. I have two podcasts. So I have The Christian and the Witch, which is a podcast I do with my boyfriend, and you can find that by searching The Christian and the Witch podcast. We have a Facebook group where people drop like hilarious religious memes and have arguments about the Bible and shit, and then like ask questions about witchcraft. There's a lot of like interesting people in that group. And then we're also on Instagram and Twitter, and hopefully Ashley links them because they're all different. And then I also have an astrology podcast where I talk about different aspects of astrology and astrological basics for all the planets. So if you want to understand how to read your natal chart and stuff, then check me out at Astrology Witch Podcast. You can Google it, or it's on Instagram at Astrology Witch Podcast. And hopefully Ashley links the rest, because I'm not gonna like bore you with spelling all of them out.
Yes, I will link all of your socials.
Oh
And you
yeah, and I have a
as well.
Patreon that no one cares about, but please join me if you feel inclined. That would be wonderful.
I care.
Ashley and
I think it's
Azazel are my
Self-information.
only fans. I feel like that scene in Yes Man where like Zooey Deschanel has that band and she's like, "Hey, Rodrigo, Vanessa, John," because she has like 9 fans. That's how I feel. It's great.
Well, I appreciate all the posts
I'm
on
happy to be
astrology that you
supporting
make
you.
because they're very detailed, and I learn a lot from them. Thank you.
Yay!
And I'm there to support you.
And we all know Ashley hates astrology. It's so good. Oh, if you want to hear all 3 of us on my podcast talking about astrology and Ashley basically talking about how she hates astrology, definitely check my podcast out.
It was a great episode.
Okay, I don't hate astrology.
It's so good.
Anyway, so you can find me on the internets. I'm there.
Everywhere.
On Twitter, I'm at Seek Witchcraft. At Twitter, I'm at Seek Witchcraft. On Instagram, I'm at Seeking Witchcraft. On Facebook, I have a Facebook page where I just post mostly memes, honestly. It's called Seeking Witchcraft Podcast, and I have a Facebook group, which we talked about a bit, that all 3 of us, we moderate it, called Witches Seeking Witchcraft. Please answer the questions and we will deny you.
For some reason, people hate answering the last one. Like, they'll say yes to everything except the last one. I'm like, why? Do they not scroll? Like, I don't know what happened. So if you've been denied, that's why you've been denied, because you forgot to answer the last question.
Yeah, and if you go to invite your friends, please let them know, because they have to answer the questions too.
But yeah,
I was gonna say I also have a Patreon as well. It's Seeking Witchcraft. We have a book club that we do, and our first book club actually starts this weekend. I don't know when this episode's coming out. It's going to come out hopefully in October.
I'll try. Jesus.
But Azazel may or may not be my editor.
Everyone's editor.
Yes, we're going to be reading Thor Moody's new book. So if you're interested in joining the book club and seeing when new episodes are out and meeting some cool people, because we have a Discord page just for Patreon people, go feel free to join it. Okay, well, thanks again, guys. This was so fun. I had such a fun time recording this episode. I was like, I want to do something for spooky season, and I don't really know what to talk about. Like, let's talk about our ghost stories, because that's always a fun thing to do.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Okay.
Bye.
Well, bye, guys.